almost all-time highs pricing on copper. And silver, most of my career was between $10 and $15. And, anecdotally, when I was negotiating with SSR to buy Berenguela, I think it was 5 years ago now, silver was trading at $16. By the time we finished negotiations, it had started to move, and it had hit, in fact, it went over 20. We were a little concerned that maybe the pricing was getting too good. But I remember saying to our board, if silver ever hits $30, wow, the amount of cash flows that will be thrown off from a project or projects like that is going to be fantastic. And here we are at $75. Now, granted, we have gone through some inflationary times. The CapEx has gone up on these deposits. But, I'm going to make a blanket statement that, if silver holds at 75 and if it goes, or 100, I think you'll see returns from deposits that have really good all-in sustaining costs of, say, $20 or $22 an ounce. They could rival some of the returns that we saw from the U.S., high-tech companies in their heyday. So I think that's where we're heading. Our largest shareholder is, I think he's one of the biggest preeminent silver investors globally, Eric Sprott. And I know a lot of people say Eric owns a lot of companies. He does, probably 140. I think we're one of his top holdings, maybe top 5 even. I don't deem to speak for Eric, but I think the reason is, and speaking with Eric, is that initially Eric bought 19.9% when we had our secondary asset, Chayacoyo in Chile. And I think at the time, it was, 45 million ounces measured and indicated 35, 10 million and inferred. I think Eric was putting us in a large basket of silver companies. Silver at the time was still in the low 20s, and he anticipated, as I said, by this time silver would be $80, which it is, 75. So I think we were in the broader basket. When we then were able to secure the Berenguela deposit, which is now sitting at 120 million ounces of silver and a further 20 million inferred, Eric then said, okay, this looks like a significant silver deposit, and he put more money into the company. He now owns 25% and 72 million shares. But interestingly enough, he had diluted down and then came back up to 19.9% 18 months ago, and then had phoned us about 30 days after he went back up to 19.9 and asked if he would mind if he went to 25%, because he sort of said tongue-in-cheek, maybe I should have been doing a little further due diligence. I did not realize the type of manganese that you had at Berenguela, and also the uses for that manganese and the anticipated markets going forward. So he went to 25%, largely because of the manganese. So it's kind of dual levers, the silver and the manganese. So we're very fortunate because Eric's been a good advocate for the company and what we're doing. I think certainly agrees with management on how best to advance the project. And as I say, I don't mean to speak for him, but I believe he's happy in his investment and will continue to be an anchor shareholder. From a chairman of a company, $75 silver is fantastic. We modeled our last resource in November of last year. I think we used $29.50 silver. Our pre-feasibility due out early next year, we would probably use $45 silver. But I do know at these silver prices would certainly produce excellent cash flow, especially if your all-in sustaining costs are on the lower side. So I think the future looks very bright on the silver front and the manganese for that matter as well. So we're on the right side, I think, of history as far as the commodity cycle goes. And I'm often asked how long I think this cycle will be. I think it'll be protracted based on the demand and certainly supply. You know, one of the stats that I always use, and I'm going to use a copper stat, but I think it's germane to every commodity. 226 discoveries in the last, 25 years since 30 years since 1990, and there's only been 10 in the last 10 years. And that doesn't mean there's 226 mines, or certainly not, but we're not finding new ore bodies. And it used to take 10 years from discovery till production. That's now 18 years. That's too long. But demand is continuing to increase. Silver, we look at silver. Silver used to be considered more of a financial vehicle than it did industrial. Silver's now, depending on who you talk to, on the conservative side, industrial is 50%. On the more aggressive side, 65% of silver use is industrial. And the last 5 years, we've been in deficit. So silver's used largely in the, 25% is used for solar panels. So it's used in the renewable industry. Solar panels are the number one renewable. It's also used in AI and call centers, given it's the most conductive metal on the planet. So it has those uses, but it's also used in aeronautics. It's used in the space industry, computers or cell phones. I think the number is for every EV uses an ounce to an ounce and a half to silver. And for the first time in history, I believe the European sales for electric vehicles outpaced internal combustion engines. By 2030, they were predicting 50% of all vehicles sold worldwide would be EVs. I think that's been scaled back due to the U.S. removing subsidies to about 40%, but it's still a lot. And by 2040, the majority of vehicles sold will certainly be electric vehicles and hybrids. So the demand for silver, because of its industrial use, I believe is going to continue to escalate. So deposits like Berenguela that have a large silver endowment are going to be worth a lot of money going forward.